Right. I'm well aware that this seems a little late in the day since the Premier League season kicks off tomorrow night, as last season's runners-up Liverpool play host to newly promoted Norwich City, so many of you will have your FPL teams firmly locked in by this point. However, an awful lot of people have commented asking me to share either my thoughts on FPL this season or my team itself, so today I'm going to do both, and I suspect many of you, like me, are still tinkering with your side and casting doubt over every selection you've made, and perhaps this video could be of use to you fellow indecisive players. Before I start, I should point out that we do have a HITC Sevens FPL League, which I set up last season and a few thousand of you joined, and it looks as though we've already got a fair few more than that for this season. The code to join is EFFIO1, which I'll try to remember to put in the video description so you can just copy and paste it, but let's be honest, I'm probably going to forget. Last season I challenged everyone to enter the league and prove what a hopeless know-nothing I really am, as has been proved on this channel on so many occasions in the past. I think I finished 87th, which I will point out isn't bad going over a few thousand, but nevertheless, a whopping 86 of you can lord it over me that you are superior FPL managers than myself. I should also point out, and I really can't stress this point enough, there are absolutely no prizes or rewards, monthly or otherwise, in the HITC Sevens mini league, just lots of pride, and maybe the odd shout out from myself for doing well. Right, let's get cracking. I wasn't quite sure how to format this video originally. I contemplated looking at the best player at every price in every position until I realised that would take 3 years to make, so instead I'm just going to go through goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and forwards, suggesting where I think there are some bargains to be had, sharing my views on the obvious candidates, and ultimately telling you who is in my FPL side right now, although I'm not promising you that it won't have changed by 7 PM tomorrow or even by the time this video comes out. Goalkeepers. Between the sticks, Brazilian duo Alisson and Ederson were the best picks last season, with Liverpool and Man City being by far and away the best two teams in the division. With Liverpool and Man City expected to lead the way in terms of clean sheets once again this term, it's perhaps little surprise that over half of all FPL managers have either Alisson or Ederson as their starting choices in goal ahead of the start of the new season. One turn off against the duo, however, is the fact that you can only have 3 players from a single team, and there are no doubt plenty of FPL managers who would like to have 3 outfield players from either Liverpool or Man City. Furthermore, whilst these two did lead the way last season, it was far from a landslide. Alisson won 176 FPL points and Ederson won 169, whilst third place Jordan Pickford at Everton was hot on their heels with 161. Having said that, it is worth noting that 15 of Jordan Pickford's FPL points came by virtue of his 3 penalty saves, whilst Ederson and Alisson saved none, so whether you think that is replicable this season is really up to you. In terms of bargains out there, I think the only way to play that really is to start rotating your goalkeeper for teams with easier fixtures. At the start of the season, you could perhaps do a lot worse than Jordan Pickford or Lucas Fabianski, with both Everton and West Ham enjoying early fixtures with good clean sheet potential. Ultimately, the 2 goalkeepers selected by the most FPL managers right now are Alisson at Liverpool and David Button at Brighton, and in typically boring and unimaginative HITC 7 style, they're actually the 2 goalkeepers in my FPL team right now. Liverpool were excellent defensively last season and enjoy a host of opponents who they should be able to shut out in the early parts of this season, whilst Button is just the most likely of the few £4 million goalkeepers to ever get on the pitch, and as you'll see, I don't like to waste much of my budget on my subs. I should point out that it is possible that I could sub out Alisson for either Fabianski or Pickford before the season starts if I'm really desperate to free up the extra £0.5 million, but personally, I tend to have a quite settled goalkeeper throughout the FPL season, and Alisson is the safest pair of hands in that respect as far as I'm concerned. Defenders. Moving on to the defenders, and this is a position that has really grown in importance in recent years, somewhat unsurprisingly, given just how attacking fullbacks have become over these last few seasons in particular. Last season, Andy Robertson won an incredible 213 FPL points in total, a tally bettered only by Mohamed Salah, Raheem Sterling, Sadio Mane and Eden Hazard on the entire game, the last of whom isn't even on the game next season, having made a summer transfer to Real Madrid. There are real points to be had from defence then, and Liverpool trio Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and Van Dijk unsurprisingly all enjoy over 25% ownership. Virgil van Dijk is actually the most popular player on the entire game, with almost half of all managers having him in their team, thanks partly to the fact that he's a guaranteed starter, and then the added bonus of him being £0.5 million cheaper than Jurgen Klopp's 2 fullbacks. Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are both priced at £7 million, and whilst the risk-averse side of me is saying Robertson has no competition at left back, whilst Klopp has history of putting Joe Gomez in at right back on rare occasions, my gut says Alexander-Arnold is only going to get better this season, he will record slightly more assists than Robertson, and he may well take a number of set pieces. Elsewhere, Luca Digne and Aaron Wan-Bissaka are popular choices, with Wan-Bissaka having a friendly £5.5 million price tag and having shown plenty of attacking intent in pre-season, whilst Digne possesses a wand of a left foot and will be an absolute gem if Everton also manage to keep a good number of clean sheets. As for the bargains, differentials and potential overlooked assets, whoever manages to nail down that right back spot at Tottenham will prove attractive. It's unclear just yet whether Kyle Walker-Peters, Serge Aurier or even Juan Foyth will be Poch's preferred choice throughout the campaign. All priced at just £5 million, if one of them makes the position their own, they will represent real value. Most FPL managers tend to avoid defenders from the promoted sides, often wisely, but there could be value in Sheffield United's Jack O'Connell, who is priced at just £4.5 million. Chris Wilder will need to keep clean sheets at home this season if the Blades are to have any chance of staying up. O'Connell is an nailed-on starter and also a threat in the air at the other end. In terms of a bench defender, you could certainly do a lot worse. Ender Stevens is also a threat at left back, but I'd suggest there may be safer options at that £5 million price point. I could name a lot of others, but I don't want this video to be an hour long, so I'll just cut to the chase and tell you the 5 defenders in my FPL team. Firstly, I've gone with my gut and picked Alexander-Arnold over Robertson, although it's fine margins, and I'd suggest you can't go far wrong picking either of them, or even doubling up. Liverpool teammate Virgil van Dijk joins him, primarily due to the extra £0.5 million that he saves me over Robertson. Then I have Luca Digne, who doesn't come cheap at £6 million, but at least for Everton's relatively kind-looking early fixtures, I'd rather have him than not. My bargain defenders include Jack O'Connell at Sheffield United, as mentioned, along with my favourite £4.5 million defensive option, Issa Diop. The 6'4" Frenchman looks like remarkable value to me at that price as a virtually nailed-on starter in a decent team with kind early fixtures and the potential to chip in with 2 or 3 headers over the course of the season at the other end. So there are my back 5. Midfielders. Back in the day on FPL, you would pick your Drogbas, Torreses or Van Persies and then turn your attention to your midfield and defence with whatever budget you had left. That has been flipped entirely on its head over the last 12 months as midfielders have become the highest scoring assets on the game. Last season, the 4 highest scoring players were all midfielders, with the top scoring forwards being left some way behind. This is to do with a couple of things. Firstly, the fact that there are some incredibly attack-minded players listed as midfielders, and secondly, the fact that midfielders get a point more than forwards for scoring a goal and also get an additional clean sheet bonus when their side doesn't concede. With this in mind, one could make a good argument for Mohamed Salah and Raheem Sterling being the 2 most crucial components of any FPL side this season. Both play for top teams who will win the vast majority of their games this season scoring freely, both have proved their effectiveness and consistency over multiple seasons in the Premier League now, and you'd back both to hit 20 plus goals this season. It will come as a little surprise when I tell you that they are the 2 most popular players in either midfield or attack on the entire game then, with 38 and 30% ownership respectively. On the flip side, they are obviously very expensive. Salah is the highest priced player on the game at £12.5 million, while Sterling is the joint second most expensive with a £12 million price tag. And now is the point in which this dinosaur tells you that he's put all his money in attack like we're in 2008 and has neither Salah nor Sterling in his FPL team. Yeah, I know, but more on that later. At the opposite end of the scale, Leander Dendoncker and Douglas Luiz will be my favourite choices at the cheapest price point of £4.5 million in midfield. And I think you could do a lot worse than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg for just £5 million. The former Bayern midfielder was given a more advanced role and looked really effective under Ralph Hasenhüttl in the second half of last season, and I don't see any better candidates for just £5 million. Mid-price midfielders, say between £6 million and £8 million, are probably the trickiest players to pick in the entire game this season. In that price range, you've got the likes of Richarlison, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Bernardo Silva, Ryan Fraser, Christian Pulisic, Wilfried Zaha, and James Maddison, to name just a few. Certainly, there will be bargains to be had at Chelsea this season, whether that's in the form of Ross Barkley, Pedro, Pulisic, Olivier Giroud, or someone else. No Chelsea player comes in at more than £7.5 million, which is pretty crazy, but picking out who will be the star man prior to all being kicked requires a crystal ball. I've flirted with both Barkley and Giroud, not literally, that'd be weird, but ultimately, there's just a bit too much risk involved until we're at least 5 or 6 games into the season, as far as I'm concerned. Again, to keep things snappy, I'll just tell you my midfield now and we'll come to the hows and whys later on. My most expensive midfield option, to the eternal surprise of absolutely nobody, is Kevin De Bruyne. The Belgian magician is an absolute assist machine, and there isn't a chance in hell he'd be under £10 million if he hadn't been out injured for much of last season. Then I have Gylfi Sigurdsson, who is right at the top end of the mid-priced midfielders with a price tag of £8 million, and whilst I would hardly call that a steal, it's more than fair. Only Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane and Raheem Sterling scored more midfield points than him last season in terms of players still in the division this season, and all are much more expensive than £8 million. Marco Silva makes no secret of the fact that he loves a good number 10 and he is willing to make them the focal point of his team. He has a good one in Sigurdsson, and the Iceland star recorded 13 goals and 6 assists last season. Throw in Everton's favourable early fixtures and the fact I think they've strengthened and will do better this season, and Sigurdsson just makes sense to me at least. I should point out that I subbed him out for Zaha to save £1 million a few days ago though, and I only put him back in today, so his place was far from a surefire thing. Next up I have Leicester City's summer signing Jose Perez, who set me back £6.5 million. I had Youri Tillmans from February onwards last season, who did well for me, and he's also priced at £6.5 million, but I think Perez's arrival could see the Belgian play a little deeper next season. Perez bagged 141 points as a forward last season, and that would have been over 160 points had he been categorised as a midfielder, which he is this season. His best form came towards the tail end of last season, and if he can carry that into the start of this campaign, he'll be a bargain. Again, I wouldn't put my mortgage on him, but there are more pros than cons by his name as far as I'm concerned. Joining him is Aston Villa star John McGinn, who I've been talking about on this channel since his days at Hibernian. McGinn is a quality footballer who was waiting to be snapped up by an English side, and Villa wisely obliged last summer. He's unlikely to hit double figures for goals or assists, but I quietly fancy him to hit double figures for the two combined, and that would be a healthy return for a midfielder priced just £5.5 million. In the bargain basement department, I have fellow Villa midfielder Douglas Luiz, who caught my eye a couple of times at Girona. He isn't guaranteed a start in a competitive Villa midfield, but then few players are, at just £4.5 million, and he's only ever going to be on my bench barring some kind of miracle in which he starts having double-figure game weeks and a new role as a number 10. Forwards. With a Sterling and Salah free midfield, it doesn't take a genius to work out much of my budget has been allocated to my forward line. There are lots of attractive forwards on this year's game, and I really wanted to find a place for Callum Wilson in my side given Bournemouth's early fixtures, but his £8 million price tag is an awkward, albeit justified, one. Over 20% of FPL managers have gone with his much cheaper price strike partner Joshua King, which is understandable, but I personally think Wilson is a far superior footballer to King, and the much better option if you can find the cash for him. Raul Jimenez, whose price rose more than any other player during the 2018-19 FPL campaign, still represents good value at £7.5 million, and that is reflected in his 22.6% ownership, with only Kane and Aubameyang in more teams in terms of forwards. Then you've got his Wolves teammate Diogo Jota, who I had at times last season, who is £1 million cheaper and has been recategorised as a forward this season. In terms of new additions to the game, Moise Kean and Sebastian Haller are the two I am most interested in. Haller, who became West Ham's record signing this summer, recorded more combined goals and assists than his Frankfurt teammate Luka Jovic last season, and he's a brilliant signing for the Hammers. Ken is still raw, but he has an excellent minutes per goal ratio, and if he impresses early on, he could become a nailed-on starter at Goodison Park. I consider both, particularly Ken given Everton's early fixtures, but ultimately, it's safer to wait a few weeks to see how both adjust to life in the Premier League. Okay, so as my own three forwards, I'll start with my substitute, and that is Mason Greenwood. Despite an impressive pre-season, he'll probably play about as many games for Manchester United next season as Fred West, but he's still the best option at the entry-level £4.5 million price point, hence why he is in over 20% of teams, which is more than Roberto Firmino and Alexander Lacazette. Joining him are Sergio Aguero and Harry Kane. Kane has the highest selection percentage of any forward on the game, and he was the first name on my team sheet. People will talk about his record in August, but personally, I'm not particularly superstitious. The Englishman is a relentless goal machine playing in a team where his place in the starting 11 is safer than the 22-son safe door at Fort Knox. Tottenham face Aston Villa, Newcastle United and Crystal Palace in their first 5 games, and although Kane is just about fixture-proof, he could put some tasty points on the board early doors. He'll be my captain for the opening game week. Sergio Aguero's inclusion was an altogether much trickier decision, since I'd love to have either Salah or Sterling in midfield, and swapping him for a £6 million forward would allow me to do that. At the end of the day though, there's no player who I feel more confident about not blanking when they're in my starting 11 than Aguero. He has the best minutes per goal ratio in the Premier League era, and he has a habit of bagging braces, hat-tricks, and occasionally even 4s or 5s in a single game, and to be honest, I just think he's absolutely brilliant. You shouldn't let your heart rule your head when it comes to fantasy, and I don't think I have, but I just feel more relaxed going into a game with Sergio Aguero on my side than if he wasn't, and knowing he was in other people's teams. I also think he's slightly more rotation-proof than Sterling, although probably not Salah if I'm honest. So that is my FPL team, as things stand. I could just as easily make a case for a midfield-heavy team in terms of funds like this one, and I'd be lying if I said I was confident the team I've selected will outperform that one. Not having Salah could be mine doing if the Egyptian superstar tears things up a la 2017-18, but then I will score more points than most if both Kane and Aguero are really firing on all cylinders. Obviously let me and everyone else know your views in the comments. Who's in your team, who are your wildcard picks, bargains and surefire inclusions? I must admit I'm a bit disappointed that I don't have one bargain player on my side who I'm quietly confident about with a really low inclusion percentage. Last season, I had Aaron Wan-Bissaka from the first game week, and I can't say I have any really obscure shouts like that this season. Maybe John McGinn, but then he's pretty high profile following his links to Manchester United this summer. Anyhow, that's all from me, leave your views in the comments, and feel free to join our HITC Sevens FPL League for the season. Once again, the code to do so is EFFIO1. Thank you all for watching, you know where those like and subscribe buttons live if you're feeling generous on this fine August day, and I wish you all the best of luck throughout this FPL campaign. I'll see you on the other side.